Hello patrons! Welcome to my first Patreon exclusive video. Today we're going to be going through the Centorial on your own challenge. And if you look here inside my computer, I have Ableton Live 9. And the assignment is to initialize your synth, check out the different waveforms your synth has, and to explore pulse width modulation. In the first lesson in Centorial, we were introduced to the various waveforms such as saw and square. And what I'll first do is open Primer. And here it is. And it initializes, its default state is this lead cascading sync patch. Got a lot of effects on it. Obviously, if you open a synth, that's not how you want it to start. So in Primer, it's easy to reset it. You just hit reset and it resets. And you have something really basic. You have both oscillators on, but since the mix is at 1, but you know, basically you can turn that off. You got oscillator 1. It's on a triangle, or sorry, a sawtooth wave. There's nothing going on with the filter, which you'll learn about later. This is about as basic of a sound as you can possibly imagine. If you wanted to save this, you could. And you could just save it under User Presets as init. And that's a pretty common abbreviation for an initialized patch. So that's pretty much it. There's nothing really more that you can say. You can definitely customize this, save it how you want, and then load that every time it starts. You could probably even go into your system folders and set whatever the default patch is to this init patch, okay? That's Primer. That's as simple as it gets. And then, yeah, if you want to explore your pulse, you already know where it is. It's here. This is the non-simplified version of Primer, so you can actually turn the knob the whole way. It's not a 3-position thing. A little quirk is that here it pops back over. Oh, it was doing that. Yeah, see when you have it all, there, boom. It's like when it's 0.12 thin or whatever, it like, the little image glitches, but that's not the end of the world. That's Primer, okay? But I wanted to start to explore Massive a little bit, because obviously I've used Primer. I went through the whole Centorial program, but Massive is one that I haven't played with much. So Massive opens as default into this kind of weird state where it has an actual amp envelope, you know, and I don't really like that. So what I wanted to do was make some adjustments in terms of where we start. So we're going to start with a sawtooth, go into filter 1 in series, so it would flow like this, turn it to mix 1, so it's just this filter, amp envelope, sorry, we can just turn up all the way, drop the attack down and the release, and I have the amp setting here to half, as recommended in a blog post I recently checked out. That way you don't clip your internal circuits. You can set oscillator 3 here to -12 and keep it as a square. That way you have like a sub oscillator. Or you could even go down 2 octaves. You know, so put that to filter 1, this one too. You can turn these off. So that's your basic patch. You can turn everything off that you don't need to save on potential CPU if you have an older machine. And that's pretty much it. The other thing that the guy recommends is to change your pitch bend up and down too. It's a good default to have. So that's a major second distance. That's in half steps. And that's pretty much it. So you can just go ahead and save that to your user right here it's going into my primer thing. So where we actually want to go for native instruments is into documents, native instruments, massive, sounds, and I had already saved it. So, save it again, and that's it. Okay, that's how you initialize. Oh, if you want to initialize it as per how it originally loaded, then what you do is you come over to global and hit init patch. I could have just showed you that in the beginning, but that would have been just way too easy. So I want to go to recent and come back to this. One of the things I wanted to show you was some of the differences in these waveforms. I'm not sure that I did the best job explaining it in the first lesson tutorial on YouTube. So I think the best way to do it is to start with primer, and then you can download this oscilloscope called Smexoscope by Bram and Sean at Smart Electronics with an X on the end, so you know that it's really dope. Sorry. Reset. See, this is why these are useful. So this is obviously a saw patch, and looks like a sawtooth, huh? This is 0 amplitude, and it's popping up and ramping down just like it shows on the tin. But if you come over here to a pulse, that's what it's supposed to look like. And as we bring the pulse width toward a more narrow state, slowly we end up with just these tiny little short pulses that are negative. In some sense, like inside of Massive, which I'll show you, you can actually have the pulses go down, or negative or positive, but I think they pretty much sound the same. But the other part of this on your own challenge is to check the various waveforms available, including this pulse width modulation function, which you can see, you can hear it, you can see it, therefore you know it. But there's also waveforms such as this triangle. Looks exactly like a triangle. And a sine wave, which is a little bit more smooth. In fact, the smoothest waveform you can have. So this is in like loose progression of intensity. Triangle, sine. So obviously the triangle, more upper harmonics. Okay, sine technically having no harmonics. Narrow pulse, medium pulse, and square, where you have equal amounts of positive and negative amplitude. In a saw where you have a quick ramp up and a slow sojourn into the other part of your phase cycle, okay? And then back into Massive, I mean, I'm not going to go through all the waveforms here. There's actually some pretty good resources online, some free ones where you can see all these various waveforms that this some bitch has, and recent files. And did I not put this down halfway? I don't know why it's not loading. There we go. Okay. So let's take a look at some of these, right? Let's turn the volume up a little bit. Now this saw wave is reversed. And some people will tell you that it gives a different sound. There has been some analog synths which have featured these negative saw waveforms, and I think that I preferred those. Regardless, Massive has it, okay? If you want to find out about pulse width modulation in Massive, what you do is you come over here to VA, which is virtual analog. You have to put it over on pulse in terms of your wave position. With this knob is it morphs between two wave shapes and potentially some in the middle. That's why they call it a wavetable synthesizer. So over here we should have If we put pulse width in the center, we have as close to a perfect square as is capable inside of massive. That's actually pretty close. And then, like I told you, if you start to bring this pulse width toward the negative, you can actually turn the thing all the way off. These tiny little spikes start to open up to a perfect square, and then you start to get these little spikes on top. Okay, so that's that. It says pulse saw. So I'm going to come over here. Again, we have that reversed sawtooth, but pulse width does nothing. Okay, and I'm not even going to get into sync because that's something we're going to learn later. But if you come over here, these basically through here are the ones that I could visualize. All these other ones are just ridiculous. So square saw in the middle, we'd have, this is I think how it initializes with kind of like this mix over here, okay? But we want a square. Intensity is just going to turn it into a sine. So square, sine, and then saw, we can morph between the two, okay? And it's pretty much just like this one over here, except the difference is here in the VA you have pulse width modulation for your intensity knob, where with this you only can turn it, it's almost like a filter. So square, saw 2, we start here with a square. That looks a little bit more jacked up. Why does it look like that? I don't know. But I will tell you that some of the actual analog synthesizers, they don't make perfect squares like you would see in Primer. You know, Primer's a pretty simple VST, and if you look at its square wave again, sorry, it's just about as perfect as you can imagine. But since like the Moog Voyager, they don't have perfect square waves like that. So that's what gives it a slightly different sound. Okay. So we've talked about how to initialize these synths. Obviously, you're free to pick whatever synth you want. If you're a complete synth noob, I would say stick with Primer. It's already going to be confusing to you to open this up and see all these options available to you. There used to be an option for this synth that it would just show a simplified version of it. So it would be just like the training wheel primer that you have inside of Centaurio. But as it stands, you have full motion in these knobs. So yeah, if you're new, start with Primer. If you've already been using synths, if you have a synth that you already know and use somewhat, then I would say stick with that. It's up to you. But yeah, so we covered how to initialize. We checked some waveforms. We did a pulse modulation demo. Let's just open up Massive one more time and just get a quick visualization on some of these ridiculous waveforms. I mean, that square, this freaking second square, let me load this. This is another reason to have kind of a basic initial patch, because it eliminates variables. For example, if you're doing what I'm doing now, you want to take a look at some of these waveforms to get a visual on them. If you got filter modulation and delay and, you know, amp envelopes and stuff, that's definitely not as ergonomic. So, I mean, let's check out multiplex. Whoa, that's crazy. I mean, that looks like a non-periodic waveform, you know. It's a loop of something ridiculous. It's got some square action, but it's got different overtones than you get from a square. Pretty nuts. It does sound like multiple pitches. Sine formant. Yeah, it's a sine wave, but it kind of diminishes in amplitude over its looping period. And then with each of these, you also have a wavetable position. So this almost sounds like a filtered square-ish, or a little bit of saw, and then it comes up with those formant frequencies. So this is the kind of complexity you can involve yourself in once you understand your basic waveforms. You don't really even need to understand the basic waveforms. You could just jump right in, but Suntorio gives you kind of a coat rack to hang your ideas, just like music theory. Some people are like, should I learn music theory? Well, if you plan to learn a lot of stuff, you want to be versatile, then yes, you should learn it, because theory, again, gives you a framework where you can say, okay, it's just like your bookmarks folder. If you just have one big folder of bookmarks, that's great. Good luck finding and organizing your ideas. And Suntorio will help you organize that, give you a baseline upon which you can build into, you know, like literal lunacy. So yeah. Hopefully that was helpful, guys. Thank you for being my patron. If you haven't checked out Suntorio, it has a free demo. Buy it if you'd like. I get a commission since I'm a Suntorio affiliate. I like the program. It helped me become much more comfortable with synths. I am doing these tutorials in order to enhance my own understanding, because like they say, teachers learn more than students. So yeah, I want to learn Massive because I'm not really using Ableton anymore. I was using this built-in instrument analog, and it's cool. You know, I can definitely use it. Again, here's your amp envelope. Boom, on, off. You don't want any velocity. Turn that off. And this is the synth that I went through Suntorio with. So, I'm very comfortable with it. It's already got pitch bend at 2. And that's, again, when you kind of have a regular expectation, then pretty much you can open up any synth and be like, all right, well, here's ground zero, you know, and you can start your nuclear disaster cleanup or explosion from there, as the case may be. Okay, guys? So once again, thank you for being my patron. I hope to get out patron-only exclusives every week. Those of you who are higher tier members, I look forward to our lesson together this month, and I'll see you next week. Peace.